I come from Zimbabwe, um, and was born in a rural area. So basically, that photo at the top there is where I was born, or at least a few kilometers away from that, because that was my grandmother from my mother's side place. So that's where I grew up until about the age of 8 or 9. So my first education was done there. In eventually 1980, after independence, got sucked into the city. So that's Harare there where I grew up, and my place that I was living in back in Zimbabwe, in our place there. So I'll just, by the way, start off my screen. So start off my timer there. So yeah, that's me, my background. Um, in terms of my mom and dad, they were both from the same, probably about 5-10 kilometers away from each other. So they grew up in a similar village closer to each other. So that's how they met. So my father was more of the business-minded person. So that's kind of, sort of filtered down, I guess. And my mom was sort of the glue around the house. She was very active, very innovative as well, but she was sort of the glue around the house and made sure that we made our beds and woke up early. And, as teenagers, we didn't appreciate that. But there you go. It's basically made up to the people that we are now. So then my very first, officially the first photo I got taken, the guy with the bun is me. The one lying down is my brother, my only brother, and the other guy is just my nephew. So we were like triplets. And like the story goes that I didn't want to take a photo. The only way they could buy me into it was to give me a ban. But then now I don't know how my mouth looks. So there you go. You can always win. And in terms of me, that's my brother, of course. They are my only brother and my sisters, 7 of them. I grew up with sisters, a lot of chit chatting, and good as talking as you can see. All 3 of them are holding mics, so they enjoy their talks. So yeah, but they are good sisters, and um, gave me a bit of a run for my money, but I'm still alive. That's the main thing. So yeah, and my family, I've got my wife there was kind of the glue of the house. She's a teacher. She's always with babies. So when she comes back, she just wants a peace and quiet after, looking after those toddlers and babies and you name it. So yeah, we met, I think, in our high school, so when you're in a high school, besides books, you got to also look around and see if you can find a girl. So I did exactly that. And yeah, so that's how we met. Probably dated for 7 years, married for 20 something, 22 years now, I believe. So yeah, my son 20 there is the one that is feeding a lot. And I mean a lot. So our groceries, we're talking to Aroinia that, grocery money goes out through quite a lot at the moment, because a lot of people, teenagers are just feeding. They are on a feeding scheme, but it's all part of the fun. So yeah, that's my daughter. She keeps me honest as always, and she's daddy's girl, and my little man, the little puppy in the house, as I call him. So yeah, um, yeah, and of course I like my jogging. The guy got faster than me. I went for the little princess, and I am always ahead now. So problem solved there. So it just in terms of where I come from, I basically started my IT telco or technology role I'll always put the marker on the day I tried to fix our very first transistor radio. That didn't go well because I ended up killing it more. So my sisters were not at all happy. They were not impressed. I learned my lesson that don't touch anybody's device unless you get some training. So I went and did exactly that. So I came out with a few, qualifications. Now you can trust me with your gear. I will look after it. I won't do what I did to my family transistor radio. So I've done quite a bit of engineering work and all that, and studied that, and also just worked in various roles, as you can see, in various companies, big and small. So yeah. Um, in terms of, I just move on to the next thing, which is basically what I do in terms of what I've done, a few solutions that I've done. So I'll just pick up one which I've done, probably it's coming to almost, getting to almost a year now, well, or more or less. So this company is an engineering company. They've been around for a long time. 47 years to be specific. And one of the things that they were doing is, as part of their operations, they had some engineers and all that. But one of their biggest pain points, because it's important to actually identify a pain point for any place that you walk into. Their biggest pain point was that they were having all these engineers working around, and they couldn't share work, they couldn't collaborate on work that they were doing, projects they were doing, like they were building this massive cooler, and multi-million dollar one. And then, but they couldn't see what the other engineer was doing. So part of the solution was just to put them on SharePoint, and that they could share their drawings and all these other things. And now they're able to actually see what the other parties working on, and then they can collaborate and see in real time. And now they're actually working with one guy who doesn't works off site. And now in lockdown, they are still doing their drawings in 2 different locations, in fact, 3. So that was a good solution for them, which they appreciated. Um, and of course, they have other email going to the share cloud and all that, which also was part of it. Then the next thing that I guess we work on from time to time is just to fine tune the email flow. One of the things that happened during the last lockdown is, a lot of people noticed that their emails, they were getting, if they are doing some newsletters and all this, a lot of their emails were all of a sudden getting into spam folders, and possibly people were getting a little bit more spam than they normally do. And part of it is just, there was just a lot of it being pushed through the internet. So a lot of providers came up with beefed up their solution. So what basically they did was to enforce what's called the SPF. So what it basically is putting some settings on your email, let's say ith.co.nz, and say for ith, we also send emails from, besides Microsoft platform, we also send, say, from this the MailChimp, for instance. So what that does is when a recipient receives it, he says, "Oh, where are you sending from? Oh, you send from Microsoft, but you also send from MailChimp. So yeah, we'll take it in the inbox." If you don't have the record for MailChimp, what it simply does is puts it in the spam. So it's one of the critical things, especially if you send some newsletters, to be able to have that checked. It's a simple check that can be done on the website, on the internet, and see the results straight away. So yeah, talk to the IPT providers, and I'm happy to check for anyone who's keen to see whether you've got all the records, especially when you send from various locations. So yeah, and even when you are sending from your wherever you send from, you should have those in place. Otherwise, you get your mail getting into spam. Then the last thing I'm just gonna quickly talk about is just also just with the lockdowns, the go-to now for everybody is just to have a good internet access. And one of the things that we've put in place for a lot of clients is just to make sure that they got good signal wherever they are. And one thing that needs to we always mind or work on is just to make sure that we strategically locate the access points. Usually, the modem that comes with from providers are not the best. So just first thing I do is always to turn off the Wi-Fi part of it. You still use it for access to the internet, but turn off the Wi-Fi access. Put in place some access points. So access points are just little cells within the house which are hardwired back to the router. So what they basically do is just they boost your signal, and then they just boost your signal, and so they boost the signal, and when they boost the signal, you can have a decent signal in the house. And when you are on Zoom, you won't have problems of calls dropping and things like that, which is a good thing. And one of the things that for those that are using, provider routers, you might have seen 5G and 2G on your routers. What that basically means is 5G is gives you a bigger pipe, but it goes a shorter distance. Whereas 2.4G gives you a smaller pipe, but it goes further. So it's just now being able to merge the two. My strategy is always to just merge the two networks together. You get one name for your network. The device would intelligently decide which one to use, depending on where you are in the house and things like that, or in your home office. And it's quite important to be able to do that. And the last thing is that I'll mention, of course, quickly, is just the barriers that you need to be aware of. You can't put your router behind a concrete wall, or even in a metallic unit, because what it does is just cuts off the signal, and just quickly, and it of course it doesn't propagate well. A good place will be, if it's behind a wall, a wooden wall, that's fine. But concrete is the worst enemy. Concrete and metal are the best worst enemies of a signal. So yeah, that's basically the things to remember. Other than that, I think yeah, for my place, I've got two access points, and they just save. One is upstairs, the other one downstairs, so they save me well. So yeah, I'll be able to help anyone, especially with a lot of people working from home now, being busy with that kind of a thing. So yeah, that's me, and I've got a small question here. So from Steve. Oh yeah, oh, that's Steve. That's just forget about it. That was Steve's remark. That was so yeah. So that's me. Apart from that, it's just a list of, I guess, where are we? We are here.